I'm on a mission to digitally archive as many places as I can while I travel, and I don't mean regular photos or videos, I mean full 3D scans of places that I visited. In this video, I'll show you how I got a scan of a famous statue of Buddha in Kamakura, Japan, and how I turned it into a point cloud animation. And if you're new here, my name is Massimo. I love to do 3D scanning and turn it into digital art. I'll put up on the screen some of my works that I completed recently. So if this type of stuff looks cool to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any future videos. That being said, what tool did I use to 3D scan this statue as well as the surrounding environment? I used a 360 camera, and this is the Insta360 One RS 1-inch edition. That's a mouthful. But I also recently got the Osmo 360 from DJI. May or may not do a comparison video between both of these cameras. There's always some sort of battle about which brand is better, which brand should you use. I'm probably the most brand agnostic creator you're ever gonna watch on any platform. I couldn't care less what brand a piece of product comes from as long as the product executes what I need to do efficiently and in the best way. Point being, don't get so tied up in which brand's the best. Just go with a product that works for your specific use case. Also on top of that, 3D Maker Pro did send me a professional LiDAR scanner, so I have been playing around with that as well. I use so many different tools for 3D scanning. I use my phone, I use a pro LiDAR scanner, I use 360 cameras. Sometimes I even use DSLRs. Let's see if I have a camera with me. This huge camera, you can just take video footage and turn that into photogrammetry or capture stills. It really depends on a case-by-case basis which tool you should go with. But enough camera talk aside, let's actually get into processing the scan. All right, let's pull up my trusty little SSD where I have all of the footage from my Japan trip. I captured over 1 terabyte of footage, so I have way more scans from Japan. I have iPhone scans, I have also 360 scans, but I believe right here in this folder, I have the finished video file of me walking through Kamakura. Also, I'm sure you've seen this very famous painting that I'm gonna put up on the screen right now. The name of the piece is The Great Wave of Kanagawa, which is the same prefecture where I was doing this 3D scan, so that's pretty cool. I can barely see Mount Fuji from here. Let me get out of the view, but right there, around there, right in the middle, you don't even see it. So here's the actual video file of me walking around and scanning, and to save time for this video, I already processed all of this video. Pretty much I turned it into an equi-rectangular video, which is something stretched out like this, and chopped it up into individual frames, which is what we're going to use to process for photogrammetry. I go more in depth in this when it comes to my paid content, but I want this to be easy to digest for people that are just watching casually on YouTube. The name of the software that I use to take these individual equi-rectangular frames and process them into a 3D model is a software called Metashape. And I know a lot of people expect everything to be free. This is a paid software, but it's worth every single penny that I've used to purchase this piece of software. If you're really curious and you want to try it out, there's a 30-day free trial. I'll leave the description below. There's no affiliate link or anything. Just, it's a great tool. If you want to check it out, go use it. So I use Metashape Standard Edition. I already have the frames processed, so let me just grab the frames and drag them and drop them into the software. So for this scan, I settled on using 200 images. Sometimes less is more. And all I want to do is change it to spherical and then go into workflow, align photos, and I'll leave everything here as it is right now and hit OK. The time range for processing varies tremendously, but for the settings I'm using, it should take around 2 to 5 minutes. While I'm letting that scan, in retrospect, a 360 camera, if I wanted specifically just a scan of the Buddha statue, wasn't really the best choice because I'd get better clarity with just going around with my phone and circling it. But that being said, where is it? Where is my big stick? I want to show it for the video. Okay. So the reason why I went with the 360 camera is because the statue was pretty massive, and if I was shooting it from a lower angle, it really wouldn't be able to get things from the top, and I would only get good views from the bottom. But with this stick right here, I'm not going to extend this whole thing because it's just so tall, but I was able to extend the camera all the way up to around where the shoulders of the Buddha was, so I was able to get a better angle. It won't be the highest resolution, but I feel like that's better than shooting from the ground. Getting it from that higher angle would result in better coverage. So I'm just like fidgeting with random stuff on my desk to kill the time because it's taking a little bit longer than 5 minutes. You guys don't need to wait. I do, because I'll cut the video. Oh my God, it's still going. Okay, that was brutal. It took way longer than I expected, but we have the result now. And it looks pretty good. It did get a lot of the scene, which is what I wanted, which is the reason why I use a 360 camera. If I just had the camera pointed at the Buddha, I wouldn't be able to get the scene as well. I think the reason for why it was taking so long is something with my GPU settings. But yeah, this is the first step. You can just export the point cloud like this. And I'm not gonna go too involved into how to do Metashape stuff. This is not like a photogrammetry video, but I do go more in depth with the entire Metashape process, as well as my entire process of how I make point clouds from start to finish in Blender in my point cloud course. So if you're interested in making animations like how I do, hit the link below. It's a really great resource and you'll learn a lot. But now the next step is we'll turn this into a model. So we go into workflow, build model, and I'll do that right now. Also, don't worry about my energy bill, but like combining 2 GPUs, because I have a 4900K with 2 GPUs, it just like, the energy it uses is insane. It's like almost a kilowatt, but this is only when I'm doing processing stuff. When I'm doing normal computing, it doesn't get this high, but idle is still high on this. It's like 250 watts, which is crazy. Maybe I could tweak some things. Okay, so we finished the modeling section. What the? Okay, so we got a big, I don't know what happened here, but the rest of the model looks great. This can be fixed with some cleanup in Blender, but like, just look at the model itself. It came out amazing. Just a detail of the Buddha statue. Let's actually see the wireframe. We have good detail. It's just the head that looks a little bit funky, but I could just delete these faces and it won't be an issue. And we also got the entire environment as well, which I love that. Look at that. So that long scanning time was worth it. One more thing that I do want to bring to attention, the reason, remember why I said I wanted a higher angle? You can see right here is loss of detail because the camera wasn't quite able to cover that. The 360 camera was around here, so it wasn't able to get the top of the shoulders. And yeah, I'm not sure why the head still looks weird, but that's an easy cleanup, or maybe I can reprocess it. But we got what we wanted. One last thing is that we're gonna process the texture, and then I'm just gonna hop into Blender with this. Okay, so now that we have the 3D model successfully processed, let's drop it into Blender and get to business. I'm just gonna align things properly, and then really quickly, I'm just gonna get rid of all this junk up here. Okay, after a bit of cleanup, I got it to a place I like. There's no more nastiness in the sky. And on top of that, let's actually add in a custom HDRI shader that I made, which is 100% free. I'll leave it down in the description below and you can use it for whatever you like. So once we have that in place, if we just hop into shading and world, we can switch the world shader to that sky. And it should be visible once I check off scene world. So there we go. Already looks promising. So let's actually turn this thing into a point cloud, because that's my whole aesthetic. So what I'll do from here is I will do a distribute points on faces. We can see on the left side, here's the spreadsheet, how many points we're working with. I like to have a dense point cloud, so let's actually make it more. I'm gonna push it, something like this looks good. And then I'm gonna do a set point radius to change the point size with a random value between, looks like something between 0.1 to 0.3 would be good for this setup. Plug that in. Yeah, let's do like a 0.2 and a 0.4. Perfect, this is perfect. So normally with my point cloud setups on top of that, I usually do less points and bigger point radiuses, but because the way that I process the scan, you can see that the mesh is highly accurate. To an extent, we can get away with much denser point clouds like we have done here. So the last node in the chain is a set material. At least for these basic node setups, the stuff that I do, it can reach up to 50, 100, 200 nodes. It can get pretty crazy. But I believe it's Kamakura. And then the one last thing, obviously the shader isn't showing yet because we need to go into the object and add the UV map attribute, whatever the name of the UV map here is. We need to add it as an attribute. So UV map right here, plug that in, and now the colors here. And yes, you can render point clouds in Eevee now. So if you have a slower system, you can render on Eevee, but I like Cycles because Cycles has the perfectly round spheres. Eevee does not have that. So like right off the bat, it looks great. Just some like final stylization that I like to do is I always bring metallic to 1 and roughness to 0.3. Because the subject of this piece is Buddha, we are going to light him up. Not on fire, but with lighting. Let's change this to disk and then 1000. Let me just play around with the light and see what looks good here. Ooh. Yeah, I like that. This is like a motivated light off of the sky color. That looks great. That looks sick. Okay. Let's give more space to Buddha. What am I doing? All right, bump it up a little bit more. One more thing that we can do to make the points pop is we can grab its normal and do some special shading with that. So because we already have a normal here, we can just plug this in here, output attributes, and let's name this normal. And the reason why we're doing that is for a neat little trick I figured out in Blender shading, which is with the layer weight node, you know, usually how you make things that like have an edge glow. It only works on a per point basis when you just directly plug it in while you're working with point clouds. But if you grab that normal attribute and normal, you see that we're able to pass it through to the point clouds. It looks a little bit funky now, but once we plug it into Fresnel, we actually get control over the mesh normals through a point cloud now, which is something that I discovered recently with my Tokyo Skytree animation that allows the points to pop a little bit more, ever so slightly. And I'll do my standard little color ramp here. Okay, I think I applied rotation and now it works fine. So just make sure to apply rotation. That was a little bit funky, but now it's working properly. So you see we have that like edge glow now, which really just brings everything together once I plug this into emission. And I'm actually gonna grab the light color so everything is consistent with this shading. Let's actually plug this into strength. The color of emission will be that, and bam. A little bit too aggressive. We want it to be very subtle, so actually we're gonna do a math and put a multiply and set it to 0.5. So maybe even like very, very subtle. You see, so with it on versus off, it just gives everything this nice little, like, it looks ethereal, if that makes sense. I'm sure it does. World shader. One last thing. I want to bring up the ambient light, which this shader is already in the description below for you guys if you want it. Let's actually raise the ambient light just a little bit because it's a little bit dark. I think this is perfect. So this is a finished look, but the one last thing that I want to add is my matrix effect from point shaders. That's a whole pack of point cloud shaders that I've made, which I'll also leave in the description below, which can really speed up your Blender shading workflows. And we just plug it in here. We have an add shader already integrated in the node. So once you plug it in and plug this in, click add shader. I think it should work right out the box. Yeah. So let's make the matrix actually the same color as the light. And man, this looks good. All right, so I did a few modifications and I came to a result that I liked. Here's the settings on the right side. And one thing, I think we're pretty much done with this. One thing I do want to add is just general volume to the scene with a UV sphere. So let's do that right now with with a principled volume. Just showing off pretty much the simplest way to do these type of animations without it getting crazy complicated. All right, so once we added that volume, we came up with a result that looks pretty dope. I think I'm ready to render this. All right, I landed on a place I like. I did a few tweaks, like changing the volumetric settings a little bit with the light, like disabling volume scatter. I'll show you quickly what that does here. But it gets rid of that awkward halo where there's like just pretty much like a light popping out of nowhere. And then I added a sun to bring back that hazy lighting. And then yeah, just from here, let's do a pretty simple camera animation. So I'm gonna add a curved circle, scale it up, also add a camera, reset the camera settings, and we'll do a follow path set to that curve and set the rotation to 90. And let's actually make it 1920 by 1080. I actually enjoy doing horizontal video rather than vertical. You know, it gets tiring after a while because I feel like good art deserves to be horizontal anyway. And I like to do higher focal lengths. So let's do that. I'm also gonna scale up a little bit. Perfect. Maybe a little bit more. Great. So this will be the start keyframe. Nice. Okay, I got a little bit carried away with the camera animation. It took a little bit and it was quite boring with all the keyframing stuff, so I'm not gonna include it in this video. But yeah, I'm gonna put this out to render it. Blender will also crash conveniently, which is like some weird bug, but that's beside the point. But I'll have the finished render up on the screen right now. If I have a whole bunch of other unreleased scans from many other parts of Europe and Japan that I will turn into animations. I don't think I'm gonna make every single one like walkthrough video like this because I want it to be way more involved and not just a guide that's easy to follow for a YouTube video, but a more thought out full animation like the Tokyo Skytree piece that I made. So my point with this is the one that I'm showing now is just like a basic version of it. I might make a more involved version of it later down the line. So you may or may not see that depending on if you subscribe or not. But now at the current state of my creative journey, I'm kind of straying away from just the generic music visual world of cameras flying through hallways. I really want to tell stories with my point cloud art. I'm not gonna get into too much detail about that in this video. But on my channel, if you want to see what I mean by that, there's a video titled Memory 1034 371, and that's kind of like a beta test into me doing more narrative point cloud work. So expect to see a whole lot more of that rather than walkthrough videos like these. I'm excited to start working on those, and those will be out when they're ready. I don't have any specific timeline regarding that. Okay, that's it. I hope that you had a good start of the year if you're watching this video as it first comes out. Not sure why, but I feel like 2026 is going to be a very exciting year, and I hope that whoever's watching can be a part of my journey. All right, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, bye, do widzenia.